Hello, everyone. Good to see you again. Welcome back to your class. Today, we are going to talk about narrative tenses. But what are narrative tenses? Narrative tenses are going to help us to talk about past events or to tell stories. These are the most common: past continuous, past simple, and past perfect. So, in today's class, you are going to learn how to tell stories. Are you ready? Let's begin. As I explained before, I will need some help from different structures that express past to tell a story. Let's see what is the use of every structure in a story. When I am expressing an action in the past continuous, I am establishing the condition or the situation of the scene. What about the simple past? When I am describing actions in the story that happened in a concrete time, usually I express them in past simple. What about past perfect? It is used to talk about things that happened before the beginning of the story. Now it's time to look at some examples. In the story that we are about to read together, you will find every structure with a different color. Remember, these structures are past continuous, past simple, and past perfect. Emily and Jake were celebrating Christmas when Jake's best friend, Nathan, kneeled down in front of his girlfriend and asked her to marry him. He had planned a very romantic night for them. If you pay attention at the beginning of my story, I am explaining the scene. I am explaining what was happening at that moment. They were celebrating Christmas. That is the reason that I have the past continuous form in this beginning. Let's continue with the second part where we have kneeled down and asked her to marry him. I am also explaining some actions, but if you pay attention, these actions were not in progress. I am just expressing actions that happened in my story. What about the last structure? He had planned a very romantic night for them. In this part, I am trying to express that all this situation was planned before they were celebrating Christmas. Can you see? We can also use some time expressions, in this case adverbials of time, to show the order in which past events occurred. They are very useful when we are telling stories. So let's check some examples of them. So, when I want to express that two actions or event happen at the same time, we will need the expressions just as or at the very moment. But they are often used with descriptions in the past continuous, like in the next examples. Just as she was starting her speech, the microphone stopped working. Can you see? These two actions happened at the same time. And usually, when I have these expressions, just as and at the very moment, we usually put them before the verb that they are affecting.
At the very moment they were discussing their vacation plans, the phone rang with an urgent call.
Now let's continue with subsequently or consequently. These two expressions shows that an event happened after or as a result of another. They are often used with the descriptions in the past simple. Let's look at the example.
She missed the bus. Consequently, she arrived late to the meeting.
He forgot his umbrella. Subsequently, he got soaked in the rain.
Finally, we have as soon as, shortly after, and not long before. These time expressions are very useful to indicate the temporal relationship between two events. But be careful, each one marks the proximity of one event in a different way. For example, when I have as soon as indicates that one event happened immediately after another one. What about shortly after? That implies that one event occurred a little while after another, but with a brief time gap or time difference. What about not long before? That refers to one event happening shortly before another, meaning there wasn't much time between two events. Let's look at examples.
As soon as the movie ended, the audience applauded loudly.
Shortly after the new cafe opened, it became the neighborhood's favorite spot.
Not long before the meeting started, she received an important email that needed her immediate attention.
Finally, a story time. Now, in the next story, you will find some of the time expressions and structures that we check in this lesson. Are you ready? Let's begin.
It was a stormy night when Barbara and Nish were celebrating their wedding anniversary. They had planned a special dinner at their favorite restaurant, but the weather wasn't cooperating. They were feeling disappointed. Barbara had hoped for a quiet evening together, but the storm had caused a power outage. Just as Nish decided to make the best of the situation, he rushed to the kitchen and started preparing a meal using the candles they had set aside for special occasions. Shortly after they had finished setting up the table, the storm began to calm down. Consequently, the power returned. Subsequently, they enjoyed a cozy dinner by candlelight. The night turned out to be memorable, even better than they had originally planned.
Now that you know how to tell stories, it's your time to practice. See you next class.